Stoju Nadula. Can I have some oats, brother? Apparently not. Howdy, everybody. This is Pike in Alaska. In my cabin on the banks of the Anchor River. Doing the best I can to think about you and to put myself last. To put God first in all things, to put you second, to put myself last. Going to do some more reading for you before I go to bed. It's like some people that you trust sometimes will bite you in the back and you don't know why. But you have to remember that everyone has ups and downs and ebbs and flows like the tide in this life. Sometimes people feel fixed and sometimes feel broken. And I'm not going to harbor any judgment against them, and I'm not going to harbor any bad thoughts because I want them to be healed by God before even myself, to put myself last. Like St. Paisios, I want to stand in the dumpster and realize that I'm worthless garbage and look out at everyone else and to want them to be healed and to feel good. One second. Let me write something real. Howdy. Adventures with Titus, good to see you. So I'm going to read From Death to the World, Volume 30. I'll read a few articles from this before I crash out. Dedicated to those who walk in darkness, searching for the light. So something I've been dealing with. I became an old believer, and I'm in the old Rite Church. And it's fairly arduous and strict, but it's beautiful because it is arduous and strict. And when you go to do something like that, you learn and follow the traditions, you learn from the elders, you learn the order of things, the order of worship, how you behave, because it's out of respect and it's out of tradition. And of course, you want those traditions carried on because it's the original church. So it's always important to understand that. I don't know why, but sometimes people get angry about that, or they feel like everything should change to suit them. But no, it shouldn't. Even if it feels uncomfortable sometimes, to learn how to do something the right way, you practice and practice and practice until you get it right. Yeah, it's going to be blurry because I'm going off my phone. Oh, let me find a story here. So the demise of death. That from the unstable whirling about of this present life, the saints were taught that true and divine life is something different and always remains the same. Having wisely reflected on the futility and transience of this present life, subject to the sway of the senses, the saints realized that it could not possibly be the same life that had originally been given by God to man, and thus they were secretly taught that there is another life, divine and unchanging, which God created in the beginning, consistent with his goodness, with the wisdom granted to them by the grace of the Spirit. They turned to the eye of the souls to that life as much as was possible for men subject to death and filled with divine longing for it. They rightly understood that in order to lay hold of it purely and properly, it would first be necessary to set the present life aside. And since there is no setting aside of life without death, they arranged for its demise by rejecting affection for the flesh, through which death gained entry into life, and by discovering a death for death, they cease to live under the power of death. And when they do die, their death is precious to the Lord, and the death that they die is the death of real death, able to corrupt corruption itself, and to grant those who are worthy entry to blessed life and incorruption. For I do not think that the end of this present life is rightly called death, but rather a deliverance from death, a separation from corruption, liberation from slavery, the cessation of turmoil, the banishment of wars, the passing away of confusion, the receding of darkness, rest from labors, the silencing of meaningless noise, the quiescence of agitation, the covering of shame, flight from the passions, wiping away of sins, and to speak briefly, the end of every evil, all of which the saints attained by means of their voluntary death, making themselves strangers and exiles from this life, for fighting nobly against the world and body and the rebellions which they provoke, and destroying that treachery that comes from them through entanglement of the senses with the objects of sense. They preserved within themselves the dignity of their soul enslaved, and quite naturally they judged it to be lawful and just for the worse to be led by the better, rather than for the better to be bound hand and foot by the worse. This is a divine law, innate within those who chose to embrace above all a life that is fitting for rational beings, which, by being content only with what is necessary, imitates the self-sufficiency and repose of the angels. Ambiagum 10, St. Maximus the Confessor. One sec. Okay. I'm going to have to cut loose early, guys, tonight. We'll do a reading tomorrow. There's some drama going on. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. I love you, of course, as always.